Hi everyone, it's Samantha Kay here. This is my first tutorial for Imagination Crafts, and this is my first video for Imagination Crafts. So I just wanted to show a quick technique that's really quite effective and can give you some unusual results. So today I'm using the Inkadinks from Imagination Crafts, and each pot comes with this wonderful array of colours, and the pot that I've got is Sunset. So in Sunset we get Bluebell, Beanie Green, Grape Juice, Cranberry Sorbet, Plum Sauce and Candy Floss. Now I don't know about you, but all of them colours actually make me feel rather hungry. But all I'm really going to be using is some Inkadinks, a wax candle, so just the type of wax candle that you would put on your table, a little palette just to put some of my colours in, and a paintbrush and some water, and that's literally it. So I've got a few different size paintbrushes, but that's that. So first of all, let me just say about the Inkadinks. They're a water-based ink. You can also sort of watercolour paint with them, which is kind of the effect that it's given here where I've tested the colours out. And because they come in these bottles, don't be fooled into thinking, oh, it's only a little bottle, I'm not going to get much out of that. Seriously, these are such intense colours that they will go such a long way. But the lovely thing about it is when it's a pre-mixed colour, you pretty much have got that pre-mixed colour. But because these come in these little pots of pure intense colour, basically you can make it as dark as you want or as light as you want. So just by adding more or less to your palette, along with your water, you can make it darker or lighter. So in this set, this is roughly the colours, but of course this isn't just the colours. I can have a much darker green, I can have a much darker blue, a much darker reddy pink, and so on and so forth, or I can have them lighter. It just really depends how much water I've put with them and how much ink I put in. But they're great fun to play with. There's lots of things you can do, adding them to mister bottles, so on and so forth, and hopefully I'll cover them in another one. But for now, that's what we're going to use. So for my project, I've used this stamp from Imagination Crafts, and I've stamped it onto, I don't know if you can see the texture, if I catch it in the light there, if you can see the texture of this card. It's like a handmade card, and so you'll find it's quite absorbent, so it might not work as well as if you used a smoother card or a watercolour paper or card, but this is the one I'm going to use. And the reason I'm going to use this one is just because I've done this technique on smooth cards, and I just want to try it on something that's a bit more textured to see if it adds even more texture into the picture. Okay, so the first thing I've done is taken some of the Inkadinks and just dropped a couple of drops into the main colours that I'm going to use. So the main colours I'm going to use at the moment are Cranberry Sorbet, Bluebell and Beanie Green, and literally that is literally just a couple of drops in each with a spray of water. So that's what I'm going to use for now. Then I'm going to get my piece of paper. I'm just going to tape it down so it doesn't move around while I'm covering it. So just putting some tape around it. And then basically I'm going to take my paintbrush, and in this case I'm going to take a medium paintbrush because I want to cover the area quite quickly, and I'm going to go for my Bluebell, and I'm going to paint the flowers blue. So as you can see, I'm just doing it really quickly. Just thought it'd be different. I was going to have the flowers red and the background blue, but I thought why not be a bit different. You have to excuse my sniffles, I've still got a rotten cold. Don't worry about being too neat, don't worry about if you go over the edge. Just to make sure in general you've got most of the colour all over it. And like with most colouring, I always I'm starting in the centre because that would be my darker bit, so if for any reason this ended up being a bit darker in the centre, that's fine because that's where my shade would be. So again, hope my hand isn't getting in the way. Try not to saturate this too much, but that's just because of my choice of paper. And this, I just wanted to show this technique more because of the fact, just blend it out so you've got no harsh lines, more for the fact that not everyone can colour, not everyone can paint, not everyone can, you know, make it look as they want to make it look. Whereas what I thought is if you could do a really simple technique that made it look really effective and maybe made it look a bit different, then what a great way for those that aren't confident in, you know, picking up a paintbrush. You can see how quick I've literally just gone over that. Now I'm just literally going to take a drop of the Bluebell and put it in one on its own, just so I've got something a bit darker. And I'm going to pick up a bit of the colour and I'm just going to go around any of these areas where I think it might be a bit darker. Okay, and I'm just literally dabbing it in. I'm not, you know, making too much effort with it. I'm trying to smooth it out a little so it doesn't look like harsh lines. And I'm putting it in that way. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is dry it with my heat gun. It's not got to be completely dry. It's not got to be completely dry, but the reason I'm drying it off a little bit at this stage is because I don't want to oversaturate my paper and end up going through it, and also to get some darker tones in it I need the undercover to be undercoat to be dry, because otherwise all that happens is it blends in with itself. So now the undercoat's dry, I can go in and add a little bit of colour where I think it may be darker. And again, I'm not being too neat, I'm not being too tidy, I am literally just adding some bits in. And again, if my undercoat was still wet, all that would be happening now is that these colours would be blending in together and just making one blue, whereas obviously what we want is a bit of colour. And where you can see here the stamp's actually got some sort of shade lines almost in it, where there'd be a bit of a different highlight of a colour on the petal. You can see I'm not necessarily doing it in any way other than just quickly. And again, dry it off. And again, if you just want to add a bit more in, you can. If you don't, don't. So I'm literally just adding bits in. And it does, as you can see, look very watercoloury. Let me try and zoom in a bit. Hopefully you can get a better image. Right, so that's that bit. The next one I want to do is the green, and that's just on these leaves, and again just going over them quickly. Doesn't even matter if you don't stay in the lines. And the leaves here, again, really quickly. Doesn't even matter if you don't stay in the lines. Oh, I'm ever so sorry that I keep sniffing. There you go. So it doesn't matter. In fact, I've gone quite a lot out of the lines, but it really doesn't matter because the overall effect that we're going to get at the end for this, it won't matter if it looks a bit scruffy as such. Okay, so another quick dry. And again, in with the dark, in with the green, same green again, just in a few areas where you may think it'll be darker. To just give a little bit of depth and shading. And that's it. Okay, so I'm going to have one more dry off. Okay, so now for the fun part. Get your candle, and as you can see here, you can just slightly see the wick coming through, but I had cut that off. But I think where I've been using it, it started to come back through. So literally, just cut it back as much as you can, so that it isn't going to get in the way, and it's actually, you're going to be able to rub the wax. And then all you're literally going to do is take your candle, and it doesn't have to be this type of candle, it could be just a chunk of wax you've got, anything really. But all you're going to do is take it and rub it all over the areas you've just coloured. Again, don't do it too neat, don't make it too tidy. Just roughly over the vicinity, rub it back a bit. Okay, and you want to take quite a big brush this time, and quite a bit of whatever colour you're going to use, and you just want to literally brush it all over. So I've literally taken the paint, the red colour, and I'm literally just rubbing it all over my picture. Okay, then take a cloth and gently dab away at some of the areas where you put your wax, and you will see that some of the colour starts to lift off. But what you will also notice is anywhere where there wasn't wax, so for example on this paper there's not wax in the groove, so for here where it's so textured, all the little raised bits have caught the blue and have then caught the wax, so the colour I've laid on top hasn't been caught in there, but all the bits inside, the wax hasn't gone, so the colour's caught in it. So if you use a smoother card, you'll end up more with this type of finish where it keeps its colour more, but just at the edges you might get a bit of run of the colour in, and that looks really effective and really nice when you get that little bit of run of the colours in. If you're not too keen on how much colour that's sort of picked up, take your blue again. If you're thinking, oh, that's picked up a bit too much red, I wanted it to stay a little bit bluer, take your blue, go over it, get your cloth, dab it off, and it will start to look more blue again. That's literally all you're doing, is using the wax as a resist. So you've literally coloured all over that, you've put some wax over the top, you've then used the colour to brush all over it, and the wax has been resisted in certain areas of your picture. Now if I can peel this off, hopefully you'll be able to see where bits of the colour, so the bits of the red have blended into the blue, and on the leaves and around the edges of the leaf there, you see where the red sort of crept in around it, and on these ones, well, that all gives a very arty look, a very you know, like it's meant to be like that, and people think it's difficult to sort of achieve that effect, but it is literally as simple as that, and it's so much fun to do. But you can try doing so many different bits. You can really heavily wax it so it doesn't take any colour at all. You can wax every part of it but just leave all the edges without wax, so the edges pick it all up. You could leave certain areas. There's just so many things. This is on this card, it definitely is different to doing it on a smoother card. On a smoother card, you wouldn't get as much paint going into the grooves because it's smooth, so you wouldn't get it pick up as much of the other colour, but still it's a wonderful effect, and it's a wonderful way to have a play. So I'm going to now go and make this into a card, and you should be able to see the finished effect in a close-up of a photo. Okay, so I've decided to quickly show you me making a background. I've decided to make a background to go with the piece I've just done. So using stamps from the same stamp set, I've got these little vine leaves. Oh, I'm in love with them. I've just made a clock. You might have seen my clock that had the vine leaves on all around the edge. Oh, I just love it. It's just such a cool stamp. I mean, you don't have to do them all in a line like this. You can do them pretty much how you want them. I was going to just do them randomly all over, but I, for some reason, have ended up doing them all like this. Don't worry if you've got a few bits like that, because they'll be covered by your centrepiece. Oops, move that out of the way. The idea with this whole card is you've not necessarily got to be a brilliant stamper, and you've not necessarily got to be a brilliant colourer, but you can still achieve some very arty looking effects, and that's hopefully what we're going to be achieving with this background and this. So just put them all in where you want them, and when you've got enough, obviously close your ink pad up and put your stamp to one side. Now bear in mind you must use a waterproof ink for this, because otherwise it's just going to end up all running once you get it wet. It dries ever so quick, versifying, but I just want to make sure that it's definitely dry. I'm giving it a blast over. Right, and I'm going to do this a bit back to front. I'm going to do the leaves blue, and just watch how I do them. I am literally going over them. I'm not staying in the line at all. It is literally to get colour over the leaves. So I'm literally going to cover them all. So although you could think, oh, it's going to take ages when you've got all of them, it's not really when you're just squiggling it over like this. In fact, you can see it's not taking long at all. but this wax technique is a great technique, just to get something really arty looking. I mean, even if I try and do something really arty looking, it never comes out arty looking. But when I use this technique, you can guarantee it always turns out arty. I think it's just that where you allow the colours to creep into themselves for the wax area, I think that's what really gives it that arty feel. So give it a quick blast. Notice on the camera it looks like a lot of it's all clear, but let me just zoom in so you can see it is literally all out of the edges, and it's like that all over. Because I've noticed from this angle it does actually look like it's all quite in the lines, but it's not. Okay, so here we go again. Take your candle and literally just rub it over your leaves. Now the only difficulty with this is obviously you can't see where you have put your wax, so you can feel where it is, and if you get in the right light you can see, but just try and keep an eye on what ones you have or haven't done, so that you haven't got to mess around trying to find out where you have and haven't gone. And again, there's no real neatness to it. All I am literally doing is making sure there's some wax on the leaves. Not necessarily all over it, but just some wax on the leaves. Brush off any excess wax. Take a nice big brush and brush all over. This time my paper's a lot thinner, and I haven't really taped it down that well, so it is warping now under the water. But if you just try and get a good coverage over, every now and then dabbing off where the wax is. Sorry if there's any joggling in the camera. The camera is on a little tripod on my craft desk, so every movement I make, I'm afraid the camera picks it up. Okay, so keep going till you're happy. Remember, dab, wipe, whatever, the excess ink off where the wax is, and give it a dry. And that's it. Again, it's hard to see in this light, but you've got a real scruffy, artsy background. If there's any areas you think, oh, that could do with a little bit extra green, go in and put a little bit extra green. Oh, I don't like whatever. If you don't want these bits of white to show up around it, which I like, because it really adds to the effect, these white bits, then with your wax just be a little bit more careful. Make sure you just get it on the leaves. You know, use the birthday cake style candles because they're a bit thinner, so you can get it, be more precise and get it just on the leaves. Again, it's entirely up to you and what you prefer. Okay, I just wanted to quickly show you that I've just quickly embossed this. As you can see, it's really nice and shiny now. Again, because I just thought it gave more of the effect that I'm going to want on the card. I'm very much, I either don't have a plan, or if I have a tiny bit of a plan and then I just add bits in or change it completely as I go. But I preferred this as a nice glossy finish. Now at this stage, when it's rippled like that, and part of the reason it's so rippled is because of the texture of the paper. But if I added more embossing ink and more embossing powder to this, and then set it again, it would start to fill in all them little grooves, and so it'd look smoother. But I wanted that because I always want to use the texture of this paper, so I'm going to leave that in. But as you can see, it's just intensified the colours a little bit, and it gives it a nice feel and finish too.